welcome everybody to the Checked In podcast. Got Michael and Zach here with special guest Pat. Pat is known on social media, TikTok, all of that, for his spiritual enlightenment, preaching about being woke, questioning the narrative, all of that. So we're gonna play a little video from Pat real fast to get you guys to know Pat.
When you were a little kid, you believed in Santa Claus, and you were sure that it was real, but then you found out that it wasn't real. And I could never convince you that Santa Claus is a real guy and he's going down your chimney now. Like you've woken up out of that fake dream, and that's what the spiritual awakening is about. It's like everyone who's woken up out of this idea that, you know, we're just supposed to, you know, do what we're told. We're supposed to go to school for 18 years and then college and then have the family and then put our kids through the system, and there's no afterlife, there's no multiple dimensions, there's no reincarnation. Like, people who realize that all this stuff is real, energy is real, we're all connected, they never go back to believing in Santa Claus again, which is the Matrix. So like, think about that for anyone you know who's become one of these enlightened type thinker people. They never go back because they've seen the truth. So like, it's an evolution. When you were a little kid, you believed in Santa Claus.
So,
true story.
Pretty deep.
So
It's real, man. It's real.
You're talking about the Matrix and that. So what do you mean by that? Like, so you're talking about spiritual awakening, you know, not going with the normal narrative, what we're taught as a kid, the Matrix, all of that. What are you actually talking about with that?
Well, first, I thought that the idea came from just the fact that, like, once you know something, like you really know something, you can't unknow it. And
Right.
that's how it relates to this. So it's like, what's the Matrix? It's just the whole world is the Matrix, but like we have this, the way it's set up to keep us down, basically. Like, free thinking is a big no-no, and everything in society is basically made to keep us from doing that. You know, like, psychedelics are illegal, but alcohol is pushed on us. Yeah, there's so many examples of things like that. And it's like, once you realize that, wow, like, this is all a setup, basically, you can't go back to being like, no, you know, they have our best interests at heart and this and that. Like, there's no going back. So it's like, I'm trying to talk to these people who are the doubters, who are like, these people are all crazy, like, these people are, you know, they're nuts or whatever. It's like, well, why would they never just go back? Because it's real. They've actually learned something real, the same way that, you know, you find out that Santa Claus is actually not real. There's no going back to thinking he was a dude, you know.
Exactly,
So it's like, this shit's legit, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how many times that I waited up and like tried to see, you know, if he was gonna come in my house or not. And then I'm like, the one Christmas I woke up and to see my parents wrapping like those last minute gifts and just putting them under there. I'm like, damn it.
He witnessed the Matrix. He witnessed it.
Right.
I remember that too, because I found out that Santa wasn't real, and I was like, wait a second. So you're telling me the Tooth Fairy's fake and the Easter Bunny too? And I was like, oh shit, you caught me. It's like, yeah, like, that's what it's like. Yeah.
100%. And I mean, like, on the podcast, we've been, for the most part, talking about conspiracy theories, you know, whatever you want to call it. But we've had a few episodes where it's like COVID related. And a big one is like we had a video banned, and we were banned from YouTube for a couple of weeks because of a COVID video we released. And we're just talking about like CDC, like things that you can find on the CDC website, like the adverse reactions to the vaccine and all of that. And I personally, me having lived in New York with you guys, a lot of people are anti-COVID vaccine. Like, everyone that I surrounded myself with as a friend group and all of that was anti-COVID vaccine. I came down here and it's the opposite. Down here, surprisingly enough, in Austin though,
really,
in a fairly liberal city within a very conservative state, there's a lot of people that are pro COVID vaccine, and I've been on the fence. Like, like how you said, you can't go back to believing one thing when you know the other thing. So I have to come back to New York in a couple months. And with them mandating the vaccine to work, possibly mandating the vaccine to go on a flight, I'm like, I might have to bite the bullet and take the vaccine, but I don't want to. And I'm so right. I'm so like torn because I'm seeing on social media just as much negative about the vaccine. There is that positive, even though I know that there are TikTok and Instagram influencers, people with a heavy following that are DM'd and emailed saying, like I saw somebody who posted a screenshot. They were emailed something from one of the manufacturers of the vaccine saying, would you be willing to promote our vaccine for X amount of dollars on your page as a post so that we can have people following our narrative instead of another narrative? I mean, they're not talking about going against the narrative by any means, but they have a heavy following in whatever they're talking about. And they were willing to pay these people to influence people's decision to go towards getting the vaccine. And when you look up the vaccine, I mean, I don't know how much you've looked into the vaccine, Pat. I'm sure it's a lot.
Oh yeah.
You can't see all those.
It's not even the fact that they call it a vaccine right there is a red flag because it's not a vaccine.
No? Yeah, it's not.
It's not a vaccine.
What do you mean?
No.
I'll let you talk about it, Zach. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So a vaccine, like you take the flu, right? The most common vaccine, right? So the flu vaccine, boom, it has small, like, dead or dying, very weak portions of the certain flus that they're trying to, have your body build antibodies up with.
Right.
So the COVID vaccine obviously doesn't have that in there because they don't know what the LD50 of the COVID vaccine is, like basically how much of it a person can take before they can severely, either get sick or die. So they don't have that portion of COVID yet in those vaccines. They have some hypothetical, synthetic, mimicking type of, I don't know what in there. And it doesn't even really do its job. I mean, it kind of, I don't know. To me, the COVID vaccine is kind of like, it's kind of like martial arts, right? If you have a certain amount of like, punches to your head, when somebody punches you once in the head, it kind of won't affect you as much. Still gonna hurt, still gonna probably get a bruise or like a monkey bubble or whatever. But, you can probably take the punch and keep going on with life. And that's pretty much what the COVID vaccine is. It's more just like a punch or a bunch of punches of training your body pretty much to be able to cope or kind of like get through the symptoms of COVID, but it does not actually help your body get antibodies or anything that a normal vaccine would do.
Right, because like for the history of vaccines, that like you said, they just take a little bit of whatever disease it is and they give it to you, and your body heals on its own. This whole thing is like going against nature. It's like when you get cut, it heals. You don't have to do anything. It heals all by itself. You have a natural immune system. And so it's just saying, okay, here's a little bit of COVID, get used to it. So that way, when the real shit comes, you're prepared. And that's how every vaccine in the history of vaccines have been like that. Right. Now, this new one, which they're calling a vaccine, which is misleading, it's this mRNA technology, which it goes into your DNA, your mRNA, which tells your cells what to do. So it's basically, and this is on the CDC's website and everything, it instructs your cells on how to behave. So it basically, your cell has a certain way that it normally behaves, like the vaccines would go into that, but it says, all right, we're going to tell your cells to do something different. And it has to do with spike proteins and blah, blah, blah. But just the fact that it's telling your body to react differently, it has nothing to do with COVID. It's like this whole new thing. It's artificial intelligence for your cells. And the universe is intelligent. Your body is intelligent. And we're saying, oh no, we're smarter than the intelligence of your body and your DNA.
Right. Yeah, I think the funny thing is too, it's like you see those SpongeBob memes where like, the SpongeBob movie where Plankton put the bucket on everybody's head and then like he's controlling them. But it's kind of funny because it's like Bill Gates is obviously like the leader in all of this vaccine crap. But it was a conspiracy that there's like nanotechnology in the vaccine where eventually it's going to start programming your DNA to behave completely different ways. Either, I don't know if they can like do it with there was like a whole thing with like 5G and that they can, alter the 5G 2 different bandwidths to like make somebody sick or make somebody act outrageous or, you know, control the emotional moods and mindsets of people through this vaccine. And they just didn't have a way to fully push it out until they introduced COVID-19, which is supposedly a man-made, you know, virus in a lab somewhere. Right. And that would be the reason for everybody to get injected. And now there's 5G. Oh, it's our cell phones. And because our cell phones are kind of a necessity now, that's the whole conspiracy behind that. But I just think it's kind of crazy how somebody that's very smart with computers and that type of technology is the main you know, front runner and the face of the get the vaccine commercial.
And he's a depopulation guy. Like, you can look up videos of him saying there's too many of us, and by certain year, this is a video a few years ago, he's like, hopefully we'll have the population down by so and so billion. It's like this guy, so he's about too many people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all linking up here.
Yeah.
We actually did a video that got banned about you know, the Georgia Guidestones. And if you guys don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are, it basically says to decrease the population of 500,000 in the world, and that's going to be the perfect balance. So I
decrease it to 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means you'd have to kill like almost 8 billion people on the earth.
Almost everybody.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to do, especially when the population's growing.
And another thing with the vaccine, going back to it, I mean, conspiracies aside, and this is the thing that's like the scariest part is like you're deemed a conspiracy theory if you think against the narrative that they're pushing, right? And conspiracy theorists is like you're basically as soon as you're labeled a conspiracy theorist or following a conspiracy theory, you're discredited. The word alone discredits you.
Yeah. So
I was looking into the FDA approval for the vaccine because once the vaccine's FDA approved, we're good. It's safe, right? So the team that was on the team that was part of the FDA when they did approve the vaccine, 2 of the members actually quit, claiming that was unethical and they didn't feel morally right allowing that to push through the FDA approval. And with the FDA approval, it's not approved entirely the same way like food is or anything, you know, like it's approved, but if you look into the actual approval, it says it's approved, but there's clinical trials from June 2021 until December 2021. Then there's another set of clinical trials from January 2022 to X date, and it goes all the way to 2025. So the FDA approval, which I don't know for sure, but I believe the approval was just another emergency use authorization. The approval basically says that we're putting our name behind this, but it is still a test. It's still in its testing stage for the next 5 years. So
exactly,
even though it's approved, you still are subject to whatever adverse side effects that's going to happen when you get the vaccine. And the FDA knows this, and they said, yeah, our label's associated with it, but just so you know, in the fine print, there's going to be 5 years of testing that you will be subject to in every vaccine you take, every booster you take, and whatever happens because of the 1978, I believe, law that was passed where you cannot sue a vaccine manufacturer for any adverse side effects for any vaccine.
But
so
you got to do it to keep your job or to go to school. But if something happens, don't blame us. That's your fault. It's like,
right, exactly.
Doesn't
and
that
that's
up
the
here?
thing that's crazy is Biden's the one pushing the mandate, right? Biden said that the Congress and multiple people in the judicial system do not have to take the vaccine. It's not mandatory for their job, only for the jobs of those in companies 100 or more. So A, why is that? B, why 100 and more? If it's so good, why not just mandate everybody?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it doesn't add up in that sense at all. It's basically like, we're mandating the masses, but not the masses that are associated with me and not the masses that are so small it won't matter. We want the majority to take it.
Yeah.
So for
that's crazy.
For me, it's just like, that's why I'm so on the fence. It's like all these people preaching that it's so good, and all these nurses and doctors saying it's basically like, it's like you won't die from it if you get it, but it's like it's a vaccine. It's a vaccine right there, should be able to prevent you from getting the illness. But if someone's not vaccinated and they have it, you can get it, right?
Yeah.
So right there,
And I
It
think
doesn't make any
another
sense.
it doesn't make sense. And another thing too, like if people have already had COVID, right? Why would they even get the vaccine if they've had the antibodies now? I mean, who cares if it mutates itself so many times? I mean, I've caught on the flu a few times, and every time I've been good. You know what I mean? Every time, I mean, I might have been still gotten sick. I might have still went through the symptoms, but my body was strong enough to know that it was a flu and that it can fight the flu and whatever. Obviously, like you just got to eat a little healthier when you're sick. You know, go through the proper hydration, rest, whatever. It's what your body needs. But I mean, like that's the other thing that boggles me is like if we're all supposed to trust the government, trust what's being said and told to us, then why aren't we getting fed the right information? You know what I mean? Why aren't we getting why I mean it seems like they're just everybody's trying to keep us in this norm or this norm of okay, this is happening, do this is happening, do this, you know, whatever whatever major what's the word I'm looking for? Like basically whatever major thing that happens in America, I should just say. It'll be very general and like, whatever. I lost the word I was looking for. But whatever that is, we're supposed to respond according to how the government says we should. And we're supposed to trust them, listen to them. And like you said earlier, feel like they have our best interests. But honestly, like they've proven time and time again they don't have our best interests. Like, yeah. So
it's funny because like it was always like never trust politicians, and everyone kind of knew you can't trust them. They're all full of shit. It's all about money. You look at the lobbyists, you look at the way the system works. It's all about money and power. It's never been about really caring about the people. Somehow now, through this brainwashing, whatever you want to call it, everyone's like, no, we trust politicians now. Like, when did that change? I don't understand it. Like, when did that change? That sentiment completely just flipped.
Honestly,
it's always I think it's always when there's something so life threatening or something they believe to be life threatening, like a war or like a pandemic or like anything else that would naturally be threatening to humans. I mean, I don't know why global warming hasn't been a thing yet, but that people respond to so well to. But whenever it's like, okay, you can die tomorrow because COVID is, here. There's a war among us, and anybody can attack us at any moment. Whatever. I mean, whatever it is, we seem to just jump ship, trust the government, do whatever they say, and boggle down. But I think our generation, being the indigo generation or whatever they describe us as, the more woke, the more challenging, the more I say that we just do our homework. We do more research than other things, especially with the internet now. There's so many people that are trying to wake up society. I think it's actually it was predicted that this was going to be our generation that was going to be the one to do it. But I mean, hey, they gave us the internet. That was their mess up or their flaw. I feel like. But yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I feel like the way that they're able to manipulate the masses is just, I mean, how they've been doing it with Trump, Biden, all of that. I mean, I believe it was George Washington that said the way to essentially ruin the country is to divide the country, Republican and Democrat. And with BLM was a big thing. Trump was essentially taking a stance against BLM, not directly, but indirectly with his promotion of the good old boys or whatever. I mean, right. Trump was essentially siding with one. He was on one side, and Biden was on the other side. And with COVID, again, you're dividing the masses. You're pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine. So I feel like the easiest way to target and kind of deteriorate a society is to divide and conquer. Because is it easier to manipulate an entire country or half the country? And the half the country that you're manipulating is the half that's able to be manipulated. They're not.
We're talking about the whole world too.
Exactly.
For sure.
And it doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, for example, in one of our prior episodes, we were talking about Haiti. So Haiti, I'm sure you heard, Pat, that Haiti, the president was assassinated.
Yeah.
And our first
One of 4 presidents who was killed,
right
who had the same beliefs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all the countries that are anti-vax for COVID, those presidents are either being killed or attempted, whatever. This president of Haiti was sleeping in his house, and someone was able to get in to his bedroom and shoot him and kill him. How are you gaining access to a president's residence and kill him? Like that alone raises red flags. But then the United States, when we're assisting Haiti after such a horrible, horrible thing happening to them, our first order of business was delivering vaccinations to them because they weren't vaccinated.
Right.
That.
Now that he's out of the way, let's get our agenda back in here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like like you said, Bill Gates and the depopulation. I mean, Bill Gates preached depopulation. Rockefeller, was it Rockefeller, Zach? Or was
it was definitely, it was one of the Rockefellers in the 70s. Yeah.
So the Rockefellers were preaching in a United Nations dinner about depopulation, how we need to get it under control. And then one of the Freemasons that assisted in erecting the guidestones, he preached depopulation. He said that we can't continue at the rate we are and have the world as it is. Like, we need to decrease the population. And I mean, even as recent as 2001, Bill Gates is talking about how we need to stop childbirth, which is why, I mean, abortion, you can get an abortion, you can go somewhere and get an abortion whenever for nothing. Like, why is that free? But then, like, insulin for diabetes is like $700 a pop.
Yeah, that's crazy.
To stay alive, you have to pay a shit ton of money. But if you want to kill that fetus in your body, free.
Right.
And that's kind of how it is with everything. Like, the vaccine is free. But if you want to go to a doctor, it costs money. You want to go to a hospital, it costs money. But if you want to get this vaccine, we'll throw you a couple $100s to get this vaccine. How's that?
And the more you look into it, the more it adds up, man. And it's like, it's just insane. And you were talking about conspiracy theories, which is, that whole phrase was created by the CIA, if you look into it, just to discredit people who were free thinkers. Yeah. And it's like, back in the day, not that long ago, think about like Watergate and stuff. It used to be called investigatory journalism. There were journalists who went against the norm, figured shit out. Yeah, people would. Yeah. Journalism used to be legit. This fake news shit wasn't as big as it is now. There was always,
look at all the muckrakers from like the like early 1900s.
Yeah, people would dig into this shit and expose stuff like, yo, there's corruption going on, and people would, listen to it. But now those same people who are us basically are completely censored off the planet or made to be crazy or whatever it is. If you look into this stuff, it's obvious if you actually are open to it. But they have this way of using fear, and that's kind of where it comes to the whole awakening thing. The whole spiritual awakening is about love. It's about trusting yourself, knowing that everything is connected, and it's all about love. And there's nothing to fear at the end of the day, ever. So anyone who's pushing fear on you is lying to you, and they're using that because people are susceptible to that, and it works. And it's like half of the population is falling for it.
Yeah, and they definitely use uncertainty to cause that fear with everything they do. And uncertainty is like the formula to create fear. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're like, oh well, we don't know what's gonna happen, so let's inject
so you should be
and
scared.
You'll be safe. Yeah, so you should be scared because we're unsure.
When really life is uncertain, period. By definition, everything is always going to change. You're never going to know what's going to happen next, and the mindset is to be okay with that. Trust that it's going to be fine, and it will be. The placebo effect, mind over matter, all that shit is real. But they're not pushing that. They're using that against us because they know how it works. These elite people know about spirituality, and they know about manifestation and shit, and they're using it against us instead of teaching us how to use it for our own benefit.
Absolutely. I mean, so in regards to, for example, COVID, how do you, what's your take on it, Pat?
What do you mean? Like, is it
what's your
bullshit?
take on the whole? I mean, obviously you think it's bullshit and all that, but like, what's your take on like the illness itself, the vaccinations, why it's being pushed so hard? What do you think the vaccines actually are? Like, obviously everyone has their own views, but what's yours?
I think they used COVID to get us to get the vaccine. The vaccine is what they want. They created COVID, or, I mean, obviously COVID exists, or something exists.
Right.
And I mean, if you look at the Fauci stuff, we were paying to make it stronger. That came out, like, that's real. And it's like, it's either about depopulation, or it's about disconnecting us from the source, from God, basically. Because at the same time, right now, if you look at all the stuff in the past, and as far as like predictions, like Nostradamus, you look at the Bible, you look at all like the Indians, the ancient Indian tribes, like the Hopi Indians, all these, like, what was the one where we thought it was going to end in 2011? The Mayan prophecy.
Mayans.
Everything is coming around about this time. And there is a spiritual awakening happening. Like, people are legit waking up. They're having these God moments where they're experiencing the oneness of the universe and the love and the peace and all that shit. And these guys want to block it, basically. That's what I think it is. It's either they know that if this happens and everybody wakes up and realizes that there is no division, there is no separation, there is no conflict. It's not black versus white, Democrat versus Republican, all these gay versus straight, whatever it is, that shit's all bullshit. And we're figuring that out. So they're using this as a way to keep us in a state of fear instead of the state of love and acceptance, and a way to keep their power. Because if everyone wakes up, they can't control us anymore. And that's what they're worried about. So it's about, they're going to lose control. It's happening. And they're trying to maintain it, and this is what they're doing.
Which is honestly, it's pretty smart using it that way. But like, how do you cope? How do you not cope? How do you deal with? Because I'm sure being how you are, I know you personally. I know you've gotten a decent amount of hate for being how you are.
Yeah.
So,
well, I used to be so different. Like, I used to be
so
like
different.
two years ago, man, I was like, I know what it's like to be someone who is brainwashed and shit. Like, 2 years ago, if you said this shit to me, Justin, who was on your podcast before, I stopped being friends with him basically because he was trying to wake me up and I didn't want to hear it. Like, there were some other things too that he did that I didn't like, but so that kind of set me off a little bit. But really, like, the big breaking point was like, he's like, dude, all this shit's going on. I'm like, I don't want to fucking hear it. But like, I know what that's like. I was a huge alcoholic. I would drink fucking from morning till night for 15 years. You saw it every single day,
Every day.
And I've completely changed. And I've lost some friends because of it. Some people don't know how to deal with me now. Like, my video game friends, I'm not obsessively playing video games 24/7. I'm reading books and shit now. And like, these people are like, who is this person? Like, what is he talking about? Spirituality, unity, oneness, God, this and that. It's like, what the fuck? And like, they say when you wake up, the big wake up isn't like waking up to the government propaganda and shit. It's waking up to the fact that like, none of this shit fucking matters really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Our souls are eternal. Like, we're going to last way after this life. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be here, don't fucking be scared. Live your life to the fullest with love and it's service to others instead of service to self. And that's kind of what you're here to decide. Are you going to be selfish or are you going to be selfless? Yeah. And I flipped, and I figured it out. And I want to tell, and I spent the last 2 years trying to convince people. And then I realized you can't convince people. It just doesn't work.
Unless they're willing.
The only thing you can really do is if someone asks you questions, you can help them, but you don't want to just go and try to preach to people. You have to really just live your life to the highest vibration that you can, and they can just see how you're living. And that's how you teach people, just by living it yourself. And that's basically it. Yeah.
And I'm like, so to you, I mean, without dropping names or anything, we know somebody who is very, very into the Matrix. Very into the 9 to 5, work your job, come home, family, house, all of that. And I remember when I first saw you after all of this, I was shell shocked to say the least. And I was a little more susceptible than other people, I'm sure, but I was still kind of there. And like, what do you usually get when you try? I mean, you can't obviously preach, like, you know, you can't be like a Jehovah's Witness, like knocking on people's doors trying to wake them up. But like, when you do, what kind of like reaction do you get back?
Well, first of all, I think I learned that the best way to get people to figure this shit out is by asking questions to make them think and come up with answers themselves. Because if you say, hey, this is how this is how this is, they just say, yeah, no, whatever, you're crazy, whatever.
Right.
But like, if you can pose questions to people, guiding them to the answer that you want them to get to, that are self-evident things where they have to be like, well, shit, that is true. Because then now they're figuring it out on their own. Because the only way to really truly learn anything is to learn it for yourself.
Right.
Period. No one can ever really teach you. You have to come to that click moment where you learn it for yourself. And I mean, what do people say? They just change the subject, really. It's like, all right, like I could go on a big thing. Like I have a friend of mine the one thing I'll say too about the whole matrix thing is it's all about happiness is out there and you have to go get it. And you can get it by getting money or status or fame, when that's all a lie. Happiness is within. That's why I was talking about, like, I would be homeless for fun because I know, I'm not going to do this, but like, I know that I'll be happy and I'll be good no matter what. And like, that's real. So like the whole matrix, the whole scam is that you have to find your happiness somewhere else. And,
Right.
you know, it's just bullshit.
Yeah. And majority of the time too, people that, I mean, a lot of people who are well off are well off by like passively, like they follow what makes them happy, and that's what makes them well off. Like,
right.
I mean, with you and your social media, like, you're preaching something that is completely foreign to the majority of people I know. Yet there are, like you said, a whole bunch of people who are starting to wake up and they're seeing your content, and they're being like, I mean, I know I've seen your video. Every time I see your video, most of the time I'm like, shit, he's right. Like, damn, he, like, no matter what it's about. And it's kind of tough because when you're being raised in America, you're being raised to know that like the going to school. I found out recently going to school was something like the whole going to school 9 to 5 or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
That was basically created during the Industrial Revolution to make more workers for the factory, so they would get used to doing that 9 to 5 without.
That's a Rockefeller thing.
Yeah. And so
sleep pattern and waking up, the
It's
bells for
Mhm.
lunch, the bells for, you know, everything. It's kind of like the Flintstones, right? You watch the Flintstones, there's a bell for lunch, there's a bell to leave, there's a bell to start work. And the school is the same thing. So I mean, that whole industrial thing is crazy as far as how they brought it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was doing a little bit of research in the spiritual in the category of spirituality, I guess. And I saw there's actually a book where a hypnotherapist was talking to people who were alive at the moment, and basically asked them to try and recollect further back before they were born, all of that. And they all have the same story where I died.
I know what you're talking about, bro. Dolores Cannon, dude.
Yes.
Yes.
So the book talks about how they can recollect prior to birth. And everyone has the same story where it's basically, I died in this way. I had the out-of-body experience. I was able to roam Earth for as long as I wanted to, and I was able to leave. And when I left, you're just your spirit, your being. That's it. You're no longer your human form. You're just your spirit. And they all have the same story. And then you
near-death experiences too. They all say the exact same thing.
Exactly. So it's like, if it was one person, okay, bullshit. Two, okay, bullshit. When it's many, now it's there's some actual like believable shit there. And they'll have the same story where I died, out of body experience, roamed Earth for as long as I wanted to, and then went back up to with all these hundreds of thousands of millions of spirits or whatever, and you go back to wherever you go, where you want. You basically decide where you want to go location wise, what body you want. You find people that want to be your parents, your friends, your this, your that, and you basically run your life that way. And this is just an experience. This is not the end all be all. This is just an experience for lessons. Yep. And once you know that, it almost frees you.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like that movie Soul. I think is on Netflix. Yeah. So but that's bananas. There's gonna be a part 2 to this episode, so make sure you guys stay tuned in. This is Pat, Zach, and Mike. Thank you guys for staying checked in. Always be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Checked In Podcast. Look us up on YouTube. Just Checked In. And we also have Spotify for all of our audio, for all you drivers out there, for all you people that just simply could just listen to stuff in the background at work with headphones in, or, if you can't really have time to watch our videos, there's always that audio as well on Spotify. You can look us up at Checked In Podcast on there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying checked in again. And we'll see you next time with Pat.